Before hatred consumed my memories, it was warm. I was the fattest white pig on that old man's farm. My world was simple: warm food in the trough, naps in the afternoon sun, and the hens' chorus announcing their daily victories. I once thought that was all there was to life. Until the morning of the old man's grand birthday celebration. The usual tranquility was shattered by the clamor of strangers and the acrid smell of metal in the air. Before I could even register what was happening, rough, large hands pinned me down firmly onto a cold bench. I struggled desperately, only to see my owner's familiar face, grinning, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth. There was no trace of the warmth I knew in that smile. In that instant, time seemed to stretch endlessly. I felt no pain, only an extreme coldness and a profound sense of betrayal. My warm life drained away along the sharp incision, and the last thing I saw was his smiling face. At that moment, a thought solidified in my fragmented consciousness into an eternal curse: even as a ghost, I will never spare you. When I regained consciousness, I am no longer myself. I have become a restless wraith, bound by the lingering resentment from my life to the desolate graveyard by the village. Here, I am not alone. I have encountered many companions just like me: the old hen that was made into a roasted delicacy, its resentment transformed into lingering, spectral feathers, the donkey whose leg was broken under a heavy millstone, its mournful cries echoed relentlessly, day and night, and the fox, skinned alive, whose eyes blazed with a blood-red fire of vengeance. The old man was the first to suffer. His new car, which he cherished like a treasure, driven by our deep-seated resentment, careened out of control and slammed into a large tree. His life savings were gnawed away by rats, reducing them to mere waste paper. We contaminated the well water at his home, making it bitter and acrid. May all who drink it be racked with vomiting and diarrhea. Day and night, we mimicked the agonizing squeals of pigs in his ears, making fear his only companion in the dark nights. None of the neighbors who partook of my flesh and blood were spared either. A woman's child, the mischievous boy who once pelted me with stones, suddenly developed a persistent high fever and, in his dreams, emitted indistinct grunts like a pig. Another man's roof inexplicably collapsed, destroying his entire harvest. Even the accomplice, the man who held down my limbs, suffered a wound that would not heal, emitting a putrid stench of decay. As for the butcher who sold my body, we relentlessly tormented him. His flesh would inexplicably rot, and the numbers in his ledger would dance of their own accord at midnight. Our most exquisite masterpiece was to make him witness firsthand the hanging chunks of flesh, convulsing and writhing in terror as if alive. He once sought salvation. I saw him attempt to perform good deeds, but we would never allow it. We would create terrifying illusions, driving away those he wished to help, making him feel powerless and weary, and convincing him that all his efforts were in vain. Finally, he gave up. We breathed a sigh of relief, preparing for the ultimate feast of vengeance. I watched them suffer, looking forward to the day they would breathe their last. When that day came, all our resentment would transform into unbreakable chains, dragging their souls into the deepest hell, to eternally endure the torment we once faced. But why? Just when we thought their fate was sealed, a turning point emerged. It was the master's son. Looking upon his increasingly decaying home and his father, tormented by fear, his face was etched with anguish. He did not seek revenge, nor did he consult gods or practice divination. He simply walked into a quiet room, lit an incense stick, and began to chant. Nama Amitabha. It was a voice I had never heard before. Simple, yet it held an ineffable power. It pierced through the dense mist of our resentment, like a warm ray of sunlight, illuminating my frozen soul. My companions howled in agony within this radiance, for this light of compassion was utterly irreconcilable with their hatred. But I felt no pain. That light enveloped me, like a mother's warm embrace. My resentment, accumulated over countless eons, surprisingly began to melt with each recitation of the Buddha's name. I looked in the direction of the light and saw that young man. His eyes were tightly closed, tears streaming down his cheeks, yet the Buddha name issuing from his lips grew ever more resolute. That light was not merely light, it is a mirror that reveals endless samsara. In that light, I saw myself. No, I am myself, again and again, in different lives. The mists of forgetfulness were torn away, and I remembered. I was once a general, desperately fleeing on a battlefield where defeat was certain. The warhorse beneath me, in its eyes, brimming with the same loyalty I had seen in old men, it was my only hope. Arrows rained down. My life, my glory, that was everything. I whipped it mercilessly, roaring for it to run faster, faster. I could feel its enormous heart pounding against my legs, feel its strength failing. But I didn't care. When it finally collapsed from exhaustion, I didn't even look back. I simply abandoned it, leaving it to be swallowed by the enemy's blades, while I clumsily crawled towards safety. I remember its final mournful wail. That was a debt of life, a debt of betrayal. I was once a merchant, clad in silk and satin, my fortune built upon the skins of others. I held up a magnificent fox pelt, its luster shimmering in the sunlight, flaunting its rarity to others. To me, it was merely a commodity, a symbol of status. I never considered the terror of that living being when it was caught in the trap, nor the agonizing pain of being flayed alive for my own benefit. That beautiful fur, which was once my pride. It was also a debt of cruelty, a debt of greed. I was once a poor farmer, my life filled with hardship and toil. That donkey was my only helper, but I only saw it as a stubborn tool. That afternoon, the millstone was heavy, and my patience had run out. It stumbled, and in a fit of rage, I hit it with a stick, again and again. I heard the snap of bones, but anger blinded my eyes. I abandoned it there, its leg broken and utterly useless. Its silent agony was merely a bother I didn't want to handle. It was a debt of indifference, a debt of numbness. I witnessed it all in this boundless ocean of suffering. We are all ensnared, playing different roles. We are mutually tormentors and the tormented. In this life, I am a pig and he is a human. In the previous life, I was a human and he was a horse. My hatred, my grievances, my vengeance that I deemed utterly justified in the face of this vast cycle of karma and samsara, how laughable, how insignificant it all is. This chain of hatred binds not only them but also myself, trapping us through countless rebirths. There was no release in sight. I let go. The moment I released my hatred, the shackles in my heart snapped. I was no longer a vengeful spirit, I was just a child, lost in pain for too long, yearning for home. Following the young man's chanting of the Buddha's name, I emulated him and also began to silently recite in my heart, Namo Amitabha. I no longer recited for revenge, but rather, repenting for all of us, for all suffering within this endless cycle of samsara. A miracle occurred. When I released my resentment, the suffering I had inflicted upon them also dissolved. The power of this compassion was far greater than hatred. A golden lotus lifted me, and with me, my companions who had made the same choice to let go. We slowly ascended, flying towards that boundless source of light. The destiny of the old man and his family, transformed by this one thought of mine, also began to return to tranquility. At the moment of my rebirth, I gained the divine eye. I saw that the young man, with his single thought of filial piety, had sown immeasurable fields of merit for his entire family. Unbeknownst to him, he was protected by a golden aura of light, which was the divine protection of the Buddhas. His and his family's lives will thus be filled with peace and good fortune. I also saw that his recitation not only saved me, but also liberated his many generations of ancestors who had fallen into the lower realms, and we all attained liberation through the power of his devotion. I have finally returned to my true home. Here, there is no suffering, no hatred, only eternal light and joy. I finally realized that it is not deeper hatred that severs the chains of samsara, but a single thought of compassion. That young man might never know that he saved far more than just his father. And I, this vengeful spirit who once swore to condemn them to eternal damnation, now sincerely pray from the bottom of my heart, may they, throughout all their future lives, experience peace and joy and be free from suffering. And I shall cultivate here until their merits are perfected. Should karmic conditions allow, I vow to become their Dharma protector, silently watching over them. For it was he who taught me, in the deepest darkness, how to light a lamp that guides one home.